Greetings children, welcome to the online classes. This is Aishwarya. Please like and subscribe the channel for the further updated videos. The following video is for class 6, subject General Science, chapter 10, Motion and Measurement of Distances, part 1. Now I'm reading out from page number 95. Keep your textbooks with you so you can understand things better. There was general discussions among the children in Paheli and Bhojo's class about the places they visited during the summer vacations. Someone had gone to the native village by a train, then a bus, and then finally a bullock cart. One student had travelled by a aeroplane. Another spent many days of his holidays going on fishing trip within his uncle's boat. The teacher then asked them to read the newspaper articles that mentioned about small wheeled vehicles that move on the soil of Mars and conducted experiments. These vehicles were taken by spacecraft all the way to Mars, all the way to the other planet. Meanwhile, Paheli had been reading stories about ancient India and wanted to know about how the people traveled from one place to another in early times. So, thus begins the story of transport. The story of transport means how the transportation started, or we are going to learn why we use vehicles as the mode of transportations. Long ago, people did not have any means of transport. Okay, long ago, people did not have any means of transport. This is very long ago, children. They used to just walk. Okay, they used to move only on foot and carry goods on their back. Later on, they began to use animals for transportation. Because of his thinking capacity, he learned that he can use animals to move, isn't it? Later on, they began to use animals for transportations. For transport through water routes, boats were used from ancient time to begin with. Boats were simple logs of wood in which hollow cavity could be made. Later, people learned to put together different pieces of wood and give shape to the boats. These shapes imitated the shape of the animal living in the water. Now, if you recall the discussions we had, they have streamlined shape of the fish. Fishes have streamlined shape in chapter 8 and 9. Now, invention of wheel made a great chance in modes of transportation. It made a great change. Invention of wheel. When man first invented wheel, it made a big change in the transportation, in the mode of transportation. Invention of wheel made a great change of mode of transportation. The design of the wheel was improved over thousands of years. Okay, we are still keeping going on improving the um, use of these wheels. Okay, until the beginning of 19th century, people still depended on animals, boats, and ships to transport them from places to places. The invention of the steam engine led to the development of new means of transport. Railroads were made for steam engine driven carriage and wagons. Later came the automobiles, such as motor cars, trucks, and buses. Motorized boats and ships were used as means of transport on water. The early years of 1900 saw the development of aeroplanes. These were later improved to carry passengers and goods. Electric trains, morals, supersonic aeroplanes, and spacecrafts are some of the contributions of the 20th century. Okay, this train, as you can see the train in your picture, it was one of the big early inventions of man. In figure 10.1 shows some of the different modes of transportations. That is the first picture. Place them in the correct order from the earliest mode of transportation to the most recent. As I showed you in the picture on your screen on the previous slide, that is the proper mode of transportation, how the transportation began. Next is, how wide is this desk? How did people know how far they have traveled? How will you know whether you can walk all the way to your school or whether you need to take a bus or a rickshaw to reach your school? When you need to purchase something, is it possible for you to walk to the market? How will you know the answer to these questions? Some markets will be closer to you, some markets will be farther to you. So you have to figure that out, isn't it? It is often important to know how far a place is so that we can have an idea how we are going to reach that place, by walk or by take a bus or a train, a ship, an aeroplane, or even a spacecraft. Sometimes there are objects whose length or width we need to know. In Paheli and Bhojo's classroom, there are large desks which are to be shared by the students, isn't it? In the school, you sit in the shared desk, isn't it? Paheli and Bojo share one desk, but frequently end up objecting that the other is using a large share of the desk. On the teacher's suggestion, they decided to measure the length of the desk. Make a mark exactly in the middle of it. Draw a line to separate the two halves of the desk. Both Paheli and Bojo were very fond of playing gilli danda with their friends. Bojo bought a set of gillis and dandas with him. Here is how they tried to measure the length of the desk using the danda and gilli. The desk seemed to be having a length equivalent to two danda length and two lengths of the gillis. Drawing a line in the middle of the desk leaves each of them happy with half of the desk equivalent to a danda and a gilli in the length. After a few days, the marked line gets wiped out. Bojo now has to set a new set of gilli danda as he lost his old one. Here is how the length of the desk seemed to measure using the new gilli and danda. Hello. Now, when measured with this new set of gilli and danda, the desk length seemed to be about two danda length. Now, gilli length with a small length left out. This is less than one gilli length. Now what? What would you suggest Paheli and Bojo to do to measure the length of the whole desk? Can they use a cricket wicket and bales to measure the length, or do you think that this might create a similar problem? Yes, it is going to create a similar problem. One thing they could do is to take a small length of the string and mark 2 points on it. This will be a string length. They can measure the width of the desk and strings lengths. How can they use strings to measure distances less than the length of a string? They can fold the string and mark it as half 1/4 or 1/8 string lengths. Now perhaps Paheli and Bojo can measure the exact length of the desk using the string. You would say that they should use the scale of the geometry box and solve their problems? Yes, of course. It's better to do that way, isn't it? So, I'll stop the lesson here. Next part of the lesson, we'll complete it in the next video, children. Stay at home, stay safe, take care of yourself, keep learning, children.